Hey, everybody, welcome to Resiliency Radio, your go-to podcast for the most cutting-edge insights in integrative and functional medicine. I'm your host, Dr. Jill, and with each episode, we dive into the heart of healing and personal transformation. Join me as we interview world leaders, thought leaders, medical experts, and all things transformational. Today, we have a special guest from my local community, the Shine sisters, Jessica and Jill, who created Shine Living Community. I'm super excited to introduce them to you in just a moment. You'll hear about their journey as creating a restaurant from farm to table 20 years ago, before it was so popular, and how movement and community have really transformed their story, their journey with a chronically ill brother, and all that they learned along the way. So stay tuned. Before I do, I just want to be sure you know about drjillhealth.com. We have products and services there that can take you to the next level. If you're looking for even something as simple as N-acetylcysteine, buffered vitamin C, or some of our best sellers like Histacyst for mast cell and allergies, Hist Ease, histamine blocker, some of those have been our best-selling products. You can go to drjillhealth.com and find all of those things and more to optimize your health and healing. Everything is curated, science-backed by me. So you can just know that you can trust those products and brands that are there on drjillhealth.com. You also, I'm sure you've heard if you've been around, that I have a new line, Dr. Jill Beauty, with some really amazing products, and I'll just pull up one today. Probably one of my very favorites is I use this one all the time, Biopeptide Beauty Cream. I find this to be even better in this dry climate of Colorado than retinols, which are wonderful anti-aging. This product is a peptide, and it's so good for nourishing and plumping up the skin. It is my absolute go-to. I don't leave home without it. So be sure and check that out. You'll find it at drjillhealth.com. Again, this is Biopeptide Beauty Cream. It is one of my all-time favorite anti-aging tricks. So check that out if you get a chance. And last thing before I go to our introduction is if you haven't yet seen the documentary, we're getting great reviews. Please check it out, drpatientmovie.com. It's now free streaming with commercials on YouTube and Tubi, and it's on Amazon Prime. Please take a visit, watch it, share it with those you love, maybe someone going through a difficult time. It's been just a project of love, working through that, creating that documentary, and telling the story of myself and that of several of my patients with chronic complex illness. I'm hopeful that it will inspire you just taking your health to a new level. And again, that is drpatientmovie.com. Okay, so our guests today are Jessica and Jill. They are two sisters, two of triplets. And Jessica is co-founder of Shine Living Community, co-author of Eat, Drink, Shine. You'll hear about their cookbook. She's a yoga teacher, meditation teacher, and inspiring speaker. They do events all over the country, working with collaborators, entrepreneurs. They recently were with Zach Bush in the jungle, as you'll hear shortly. Jill is co-founder as well of Shine Living Community and co-author of Eat, Drink, Shine. She's also a dance instructor, somatic breathwork instructor, and empowering speaker. And they have events every week, live and online. If you want to join that community, you can find all that in the show notes and bio. So without further ado, let's jump into our interview with Jill and Jessica from Shine Living Community. Hey guys, welcome to the show. It is so awesome to have you as neighbors in Boulder here, and super excited about our topic today. Just how do we become our own healers and all of your journey. I'd love to start with story. You guys are sisters, Jill and Jessica, and I would just love to know, and you have another sister too, right? Isn't there three of you?
Mhm.
I would love to know, like, how did you guys grow up, and then how did you kind of come to the place where you're at now with really changing the community with food and movement and connection? Would just love to hear your story.
Thank you so much. We're so happy to be here.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Jill.
Yeah. So I'm Jessica, and this is Jill, in case anyone, wants to know the difference. And we're actually two of triplets, which has been a very unique and beautiful and powerful and challenging at times journey. And we like to say we've been creating community since the womb because
We
truly
have.
we have. And truly growing up, finding our individuality and how that adds to the whole has really been our life's journey. And we come from a big Italian family. Our mom is one of 12, and we have tons and tons of
Like
cousins.
60 something
Oh
cousins.
my gosh, I thought I had a lot, like 40, but that's even more.
Yeah, crazy. 40 is a lot too. Yeah.
And we also have an older brother, special needs brother. So he was diagnosed with a disease at a young age. And actually, he was only supposed to live till about 20 years old, and he is over 50 now. So that
Wow.
was a big part of our journey as well, is finding how community, food, connection, and love, how it really heals. And this is something that we teach and that we love, is learning to access this inside of each one of us, because it really does come first and foremost from inside of each of us, and we all have it and it's all there. And so
And then when we practice together, it actually amplifies. And so it's really powerful practicing in community. And we do this in so many different ways, and it's not like you have to show up, anything that we offer, it's not about having experience or about it looking good. It's really coming as you are and bringing your own unique gifts and talents. So that's how we grew up. And then that's how we started to create our restaurants and our event spaces and these live experiences that we have.
Well, I love that so much. And a couple of things that, well, I've just seen what you guys have done in the community of Boulder, and I want to kind of talk about that because you've created food as medicine, restaurants, places for people to gather. And I really love what you mentioned about being one of triplets, each of you, and how, because I think one of my biggest life lessons has been, how do I differentiate from my family and like love them and be part of that family system, but not have an identity that they've given me, but actually find who am I in this world? And I realized I grew up in this kind of stoic German family, and they're amazing engineers and brilliant analytical people. And then I've got some of that, but then I've got this wild streak, right? And I had to kind of differentiate. And I really love, because everything I've ever seen you guys do, there's this feeling, and I want you to talk more about this, of just what you mentioned, Jill, is how do you come and just be yourself without judgment, and so often it's not even judgment of other people, it's judgment of ourselves, of how we should or how we must or how we have to. Talk a little bit more about that, because I think of any time more than ever before, we need to encourage women and men to be authentically themselves. How do you do that in your restaurants, in your cookbook, in your community events, all the things that you guys bring to the world?
So I feel like what I'll say, I mean, we'll have our own versions of it, but when you're speaking, I think like this word allowing, it's like this word allowing is something that we don't allow a lot of times. Like we were taught a program of what it's supposed to look like, our life, kid, like I don't have kids, and for so long it seemed like the wrong thing, but it just didn't happen for me. And it's just like really coming into this allowing and this deep listening of who we are at a deeper part of ourselves. And how do we do that? There's so many different ways of coming at it. I really think being creative in your life, for me, so much about it is movement. And I feel like that's such a deep way to really connect to who we are, because when we're moving and opening to new parts of ourselves, whether it's ecstatic dance or choreography or yoga or breath work, all these things that we do at Shine Living Community, it really gets you into different parts of your body. And we hold so much information in our body, and we start to bring our soulful self online, and we start to really gain this deep wisdom of who we are at a deeper part of ourselves. And for me, it taught me so much. Being the middle of two sisters and the identical to Jessica, we were always compared from the outside in. So then naturally we started to compare ourselves from the inside out. And this work that we've done in the world has really allowed us to stretch beyond the threesome into our individual self and this beautiful symphony of what we create together. And so that's what we bring to community. And we do it through movement, through breath work, through yoga, and then through food, like just like connecting together and through conversations and allowing people to share who they are and what they're about and what's alive for them right here and now, and not who they were, but who they're becoming is really what we focus on as well.
I love that. And you guys have obviously done a lot of work in Boulder, our community with, tell us about the restaurant business and food, as bringing food into that community element, because I feel like that is such a, again, just I'll talk about patients and myself. And I treat a lot of patients with really complex chronic issues. So the trend is more and more people are having food sensitivities, and they're, restricted in their diet. And I mean, so many patients have like 10 foods they can eat and that's it. So those listening can relate to that. And it ends up being really hard to go out in the community and stand up for yourself and tell the waiter that, I'm sorry, I can't have this and this and this and this. Can you make something? And what I've always noticed about the food that you bring is there's this ability to really find good quality food, but also for me, that part of that healing is being able to go out for these patients and to be in community and to not feel like they're at home all the time, stuck with this really restricted thing and expanding that idea of what food is and what it means to our bodies.
Absolutely. And I can speak to that. For one, I was the chef in our restaurants, and I also have my master's in nutrition. And I also have had my own personal healing journey through, food, movement, nutrition, all of it. And it's interesting because through my journey, I was having a lot of body pain, and I was already teaching nutrition. I was already teaching yoga and all of the things. And then was trying to have my second child and got diagnosed with a very severe autoimmune disease. And, you know, in having my diet during that time already, I felt like it was really clean and, I was doing all the right things. But what I had to learn first and foremost was this relationship with myself and how I was nourishing myself on all levels and trying to get it right. We're talking
Mhm.
about this allowing. So, like, was it coming from self love or was it coming from self criticism? So, I will say that as just a little seed for those of us out there that have had our struggles is the recognition of like everything that we do through food and nourishment can be an act of self love, or it can be kind of like an act of self criticism or getting it right or perfect. And so, this was where the invitation to myself started to open up new avenues, and then really taking food as this act of self love, even if it is limited for a period of time or maybe always, whatever it's going to be for your personal journey. But I will say, I was able to heal as the impetus. And so it is definitely possible. And what we did at the restaurants is really taking food, we used to call it nutritionally inspired comfort food, because we do believe in celebrating food and what we're putting it into our bodies, and how we feel about it really affects of how it translates in our body, and really not like underestimating that as well, because often, especially as women, it could be about what we think we need to look like, or whatever the belief system is around food. It's something that we can easily control, and I think often we're like looking for that control of our environment so that we can find safety. So what we really wanted to create at the restaurants and through our cookbook is this feeling of freedom around food, even though it's high quality, even though it's locally sourced, but taking the time and energy to, soak and to sprout. And again, doing this out of love and connection rather than, having to get it right. So we did that actually for our guests. We were like, we love doing this. Like when I was hiring people in the kitchen, it was like, I was hiring really great cooks that had no idea about nutrition, but I was teaching them like we soak the nuts, then we dehydrate them, or we sprout this, so then we can garnish that way. And it was really this whole ripple effect that started happening through the restaurant of healing and high energy and high healing foods, but that it was also playful, the grass-fed burgers and the jackfruit tacos and like gluten-free pancakes and waffles. And it just reminded me first and foremost of how fun food can be, even when it's healthy, and also creating this environment of pleasure around it as well, even if it is a little restricted for some time.
And the other thing I'll say about that is like something Jessica and I learned growing up is like, growing up with a brother that had metachromatic leukodystrophy. It's a degenerative disease. And like Jessica spoke to his life expectancy. A lot of times when you get a diagnosis like that, you start focusing on what you can't do. And my mother always focused on what he can do. She always was like, he's my beautiful boy and he can do this and he can do that. And I was just thinking about that as Jessica was speaking, and around, again, this word of allowing as well. When these clients go to dinner, focusing on what they can have. So maybe instead of telling the server, I can't have this,
Uh-huh.
and this, they can say, I can have
Yes.
this, and this.
Yeah.
And it's such a different energy of like what you can have instead of what you can't have.
Like ordering with excitement, even if
Yes.
it's like, I'll have a protein with some veggies. These veggies sound great, like it's, celebrating who you are, even if it's through the challenging moments, because that's what's going to get us to the other side. And that's something we really believed in creating through the restaurants, through the cookbooks, through Shine Living Community and our classes, is this celebration of where we are in that moment so that we can get to the next one, and recognizing that we're built to heal. And that's what we're all about, is community, healing and community, and celebrating who we are along the way.
And really learning to trust our bodies along the way too, which comes through this deep listening.
I love that because I think it's so important. Two things that as I'm hearing you talk is number one, for a patient who has struggled or suffered or whatever, to start to really tap into their body. How does this food make them feel? How does this experience, this friend, this relationship? And a lot of times in podcasts, we'll talk about that as far as so often we're in our head and we have a rule, right? We have these rules that we created for ourselves, and those keep us stuck or restricted, which is kind of what you're alluding to. And maybe, just maybe, we can start to expand because there is, I believe, a mindset around fear, and I've experienced this having had Crohn's and gluten sensitivity and many other food things about, and I'm thinking of two or three patients right now in my mind where we talk about this and there's such a fear around, oh my gosh, if I get soy or if I get gluten, I'm going to get so sick. And that may be true, but that fear keeps perpetuating it. And I hear
Yeah.
you guys saying like shifting that energy. What would you say? I mean, you guys as restaurateurs and as chefs and as all this, what you've done in the community, you obviously see a lot of people come in. You probably even see the people you're like, oh, sweetheart, you're still in fear as they're ordering, right? What would you say to my patients or my listeners out there that are like, they know they're really sick and they have restrictions and all this? How would we start to change the mindset around food and change the mindset around this? Because yes, this is true. Your gut can have permeability and you can have sensitivities that are real. I don't want to diminish that. But at the
Uh-huh.
same time, I know part of healing is how do we view that and how do we enjoy life and food. So, any thoughts on that to speak to that person who's really stuck and struggling in this right now?
Mhm.
I mean, I really like to speak to this idea of like having it be an act of self-love is part of it, and we'll move from there as well. But like when we're eating food, like I feel like sometimes there can be a big disconnect, or it becomes part of the problem or the fear, as you're saying. So it's like this conversation with ourselves over a meal or when we're in a restaurant, because we did see, you can tell so much about a person with how they eat. And so this recognition of, okay, I feel really tight, I feel really afraid, like that check-in while the food's happening or when you first walk into the restaurant, and then starting to like deepen the breath and soften the heart and saying, this is me nourishing and loving myself rather than letting the fear take over. It absolutely takes presence. It absolutely takes being, really present with where you're at in that moment so that you can practice shifting it. And it's like really meeting it and being honest with yourself, because it doesn't have to be this way. We can still be careful and still have the restrictions, but still have it be an act of self-love. And I keep saying that word because that is what really started to help me shift my mindset around it. There was so much fear when I got my diagnosis. They said you'll end up in a wheelchair, you'll have so
Oh,
much pain, and here's a bottle of pills, and you're just
yeah.
gonna have to, take these pills, all the things. And as soon as I heard that, I was like, this is not going to be my life. So there's also this recognition of your body is built to heal.
Yeah.
And so recognizing that it will happen, so this learning to trust, as Jill said, learning to trust our body and being in more alignment with the healing process rather than like always the pain and always what's wrong. Just like Jill was saying about how we look at what we can have, it's like looking about the gifts of your body and its ability to heal, and starting to have this loving conversation with the experience of your body, with the experience of your food, because no one else can do it for you. And it
Yeah.
starts from bringing our awareness in the body and then bringing the loving awareness into the
Mhm.
body. And it will start to change the way you feel, not just with food, but really with everything we do, towards an act of self love and self healing.
And to piggyback on that, because I think that's so beautiful and so powerful, like that connection. So self-love is an act of connection to oneself, and then also the way we connect to our food. So even if it's like you're just having like the vegetables with the protein, like really like having gratitude for the food that you are taking into your body. Because if you think about what goes into what went on your plate, and we know
Yeah.
this as restaurateurs, like,
Huh?
and the way that we sourced, but no matter what restaurant, like that food was grown by somebody and, sourced like from the earth, and it's Mother Earth like feeding us. It's like so interesting because often sometimes you see people just like eating really quickly, and I get it, and I do it too at times, but then sometimes just stopping and presencing yourself, like Jessica said, and really saying, wow, like this is like Mother Earth grew this food and I'm taking it into my body, and it's gonna help like nourish and heal my body. It's like very much comes down to self-love and to connection. It's like making it into this beautiful ritual
Yeah.
of food and eating and enjoyment and joy.
So I want to talk about Shine Living Community, but while we're here, there's one more thing that I think is important. So I recently watched an episode. It's a very well-known series. I forget the title. Everyone is like, of course, Jill, this is the title, but it's a French chef named Alice, and she really transformed the whole U.S. culture with her
Absolutely.
restaurant.
Yeah.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
I was like, I know you guys will know who it is because
She's a
it's like
Jersey girl too.
yep, yep, right. So I'm like, I knew you guys would know. But I watched this and I was so fascinated because she had to go against the grain in every single step by getting these farm to table growing. And what she was in France, she would taste the foods and it would be like so amazing. She'd be on the farm and this wasn't happening in the US business. And so she had to fight tooth and nail, and all of her work ended up leading to even Michelle Obama and the school lunches and all of that. And obviously, like your prototype is very similar, but I want to hear about Boulder. We're kind of in a unique community, and there's a few other ones around the world that are like this that are much more focused on locally grown source, like really quality food. But even so, I can't imagine how difficult that might be to really get what you need to make incredible, delicious food. How was that as far as like finding sources, and you even talked about, Jessica, about teaching your employees the craft of sprouting and slow food versus fast food, right? All these kinds of things. How was that as far as whether it was just the ability to, the cost of these foods or whatever? What things did you run into, and what did you discover along the way when you were really trying to bring quality nourishment to your community?
No, we did that very early on, farm to table, and we started going with the farmers market. We'd
Uh-huh.
say after the farmers market, if you have any extras or like, drop them off at the
Yeah,
back door, and we'd just give them like a lump sum kind of thing. So it started early on, like,
nice.
20
20
years
plus
ago.
years ago. Yeah.
But then it
Wow.
got more popular, like this wasn't as simple. And so what we ended up doing is really connecting with small farms. So rather than going to the big farms, we did the small farms, and we either pick up or they do personal deliveries to keep the costs down. And we really just would buy from just a few so that our orders were bigger so
Yeah,
that they could lower the price. And we created a win-win situation, because often what's happening in these bigger restaurants and these bigger farms, like they're undercutting the small farmers, or certain farmers, or even organic or local farmers, to get to these big farms. And we were all about decentralizing it, keeping it in the community, and that's what made it actually affordable, and that's what made it actually lift it for the whole community, not
yeah.
just any one part of it, because that's what we need to be doing, is decentralizing and getting people back into connection, and everyone playing a part, and everyone and creating this win-win-win scenario.
And that's how you do it in the restaurant. And if you're doing it at home, like for
Yeah.
yourself, Jessica and I are really big on like supporting a CSA. So if there's like a CSA, like a local farm in your area that you can get a CSA, that's really great. Now there's also online, like I know we both order from a farm out in Pennsylvania that you can order online, and they deliver across the country,
And
called
it's like Amish
Yeah,
Amish
really cool.
dairy and
Uh-huh.
cheese.
Miller's Farm. Yeah. And then the other thing is like the sprouting, like
Mhm.
Jessica said, that's something that anybody can do on their windowsill, even if they live in like a high-rise apartment, that can like literally up level your health just by sprouting and putting these sprouts on your food. And you can put them, in sandwiches, on salads, like
It's
all that
always
kind of
local,
stuff.
always fresh. The kids love it. Like they love to sprout it and check on it every day, and then say, "Oh, I think it's ready." And then
Because
they
it's so quick. It grows. We had some in our
it's
office for a
so
long time. It's
quick,
like,
and there's
oh,
so
this
many
is
different
like,
kinds. And I'll
And like
also say
had
you can, there's like grass-fed farms too that do cows, and you can buy a quarter cow, half cow, and it lowers the price, because often the food's expensive. Like if you're
Mhm.
buying grass-fed meat, it could be, $10 a pound or more, but we usually get like a quarter cow, and it lowers the price to about $4 a pound, and that kind of thing. And these are just tips we want to say
for people at home as well. It's like there's definitely a way to make it affordable.
And you could even grow like on your windowsill some salad greens, or if you have a small plot to make a garden in your backyard, it's like so worth it. And it's so good for you to get your hands in the dirt and like have a little garden. It's so good for the microbiome. It's so fun like to do and show your kids how to do that. And it's so healthful and fun.
I love that. So sprouts and getting like the quarter or the half of the house, splitting it with friends or family. I love these really practical tips. I grew up on a farm in Illinois, so I know how that goes. And it's interesting. Now I have just a balcony, but I do have herbs and things, and it's so important. Basic sprouting 101. Do you want to give just a tiny tutorial for those listening if they have never done this? Because I agree
Yeah,
with you.
go
It's such an
ahead.
easy, yeah.
Sprout company.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're going to give a quick how to sprout, and then we're going to give you our favorite company to use as
Okay,
well.
awesome.
So you buy the sprouts, and you want to get special sprouting seeds. So we will give the company, and we'll also, I think, post it below.
Yeah.
Um, and you soak them for about 12 hours. So anywhere from 8 to 12, depending on the seed that it is. And then you're gonna rinse them. And then there's a little sprouting top to put on top. Super inexpensive. You can get it on Amazon. You can also get it at this company that we'll be telling you about. But then you just let them sprout. So that means just let them sit. You kind of do it upside down so that it can drain, because you're gonna once or twice a day rinse the sprouts and then again pour out the water and then let it drain. And it'll take only about 2 to 3 to 4 days, depending on the type of seed and the temperature of your kitchen. But by the time there's a little sprout, it's like a quarter of an inch. It is filled with enzymes and all this activity that's going to help stoke the digestion, and it will make even the food that you're eating more digestible. And the sprouts themselves are super high in all sorts of vitamins and minerals, because these little seeds are going to become huge plants. So it holds all of that enzyme activity. So it is incredible for your digestion and healing for the gut. And one of my favorite seeds is actually fenugreek, which is really good
Oh,
and
yeah.
really easy to grow. It's really good antioxidant. It's really good for like hair and skin. It's really good for breast milk. So
Yes.
really, really good for nursing mamas, and really good for inflammation in the body. And then, of course, broccoli sprouts, which a lot of people talk about. But I really think it's because it's been the most studied. Most sprouts have a lot of those things going on. So there's tons of different kind of sprouts. And well,
Sprout Man.
our favorite company is called Sprout Man. So they have a website. And
Family owned,
family owned.
generational.
Yep, it was a dad that started it, and then the two brothers took it over. And they have incredible quality seeds. And then they have the sprouting tops. Sometimes there's the sprouting bags in different ways. I have found that the sprouting tops are the way easiest way to go. So
We feel like everyone should be sprouting.
everyone should be sprouting.
I
It's just
love it. Well, that's why I wanted to include the practical because I'm sure there's people out there that are like, oh, this is too hard, complex. It's not,
So
right?
easy. It's really, really easy. It just
Yeah.
takes remembering to just rinse it once or
Uh-huh.
twice a day, and that's like literally it. And then there they are, and then there you go.
And I love you mentioned getting kids involved because that's what's really fun, whether it's cooking or making meals. And when you get kids involved, they get excited. I mean, even like I mentioned, Michelle Obama and the school systems and all the stuff she did, the more we can get our children like back into the soil and involved in food, because it's so much they drive up to a drive-up window and they just think, like there's this disconnect from food. And I think part of the nourishment is reconnecting to where it comes from and being part of that process.
Exactly. And it's one of the things Jessica and I love to do is go into the schools and show them how to sprout and like do some movement with them and meditation with them and kind of get them in their bodies and really understanding how to listen inside their bodies and really understand how they're feeling and who they are.
and connect with their food too, as you're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Oh.
I'll put a little tablespoon of sprouts every morning on their food, and gotta say, healthy kids.
Yeah, I know, right? It starts with I always used to say, autoimmunity and some of these diseases we have epidemics of being in the gut, and more I'm saying it starts in the soil. So as we disrupt our soils and the topsoils and change with organophosphates and glyphosate and all the kind of garbage we put on there, it's changing the microbiome of the soil. And then we're seeing as physicians the reflection in our guts. And it's, yeah, going back to that is so important. So I mentioned Shine Living Community. What is this and how does this look? And I want to hear what you've done in Boulder, but also if people are out there in their own communities, how can maybe they take some of the lessons you guys have done in how to reach out to the community and do it in their own communities?
Yeah, that's great. So Shine Living Community, it's live and digital experiences. So we have a whole online studio that has over 100 classes. It's dance, yoga, meditation, breath work, recipes and cooking, tools and techniques like for the kitchen and how to do certain things for your lymph to really how to rebalance your nervous system. I mean, there's a plethora of classes and everything on there, and that you can either sign up for a class or you can get the monthly membership, which is like $39 a month, and you get access to everything. We live stream once a week. We do the Freedom Movement Method, which Jessica and I co-teach together, and it's live here in Boulder, Colorado, but then you can sign in from anywhere, and it's dance, yoga, and meditation, and we do that every Wednesday, and it's so much fun and deep and transformative. And then we also have like these little community startup kits if people want to start in their own community and say they already have a community going, if it's like a book club or like a knitting club. Well, we have these 30-day up level themed, like one is called Coming Back to the Power of Your Heart, and one is called the Radiance Reset. And again, it's dance, it's yoga, it's meditation, it's breath work, it's recipes, and it's 30 days that you can do with a group that's led by us digitally. So you can start it at any time on your own, and you could do it, together, or that everyone's doing it together in their home, and then you're meeting like say like live once a week and coming together and sharing your
And
experience.
it's 30 minutes or less, so it's super
Oh,
doable.
nice. So very doable. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then we also have our cookbook, Eat, Drink,
Yes, I
Shine.
want to talk about that because obviously, like I'm sure the sprouting basics are in there and all that.
Oh
Yeah, tell
yeah.
us what you
Yeah.
have in there.
And just to finish about Shine
Great.
Living Community, just a few more things. We also we collaborate with other people. We just got back from the jungle with Dr. Zach Bush,
Oh,
who you
yeah.
might know from doing a lot of work around gut and gut healing. And we bring in the somatic. So he was teaching a lot of these, like around glyphosate and the importance of healthy soils and connecting to Mother Nature. And then Jess and I would lead the somatic dance and yoga and ecstatic dance and kind of get people in their bodies as we're talking about these different principles and really helping it land in the body. And it was such a blast. And then, we go into schools and like just like different conferences and stuff like that to really help bring in the movement piece where people can get to know themselves better and also literally digest not only the food but the information. And so it's been so much fun and we really enjoy it.
I love that. Do you guys have any specific like stories or case studies, or I mean, case study is kind of a medical term, but like just a story of someone whose life really was transformed by either your food or your community or your guest?
Well, it's interesting because, like, the people that have been practicing with us, and again, our model is nothing power over. Jess and I are practicing, we practice with, and it's people that are I'm like, we should be doing before and after pictures with people that
Yeah.
are part of this community because it's like literally, I feel like people are like aging backwards. It's like they come in with, their stories or they want to heal from this or or they have, hip issues or knee problems or that, just all of this stuff. And we're all about like coming as you are,
Mhm.
allowing, working with what is, and really focusing on what you want to step into and what you're becoming. And it's like people really start listening and they start really practicing from the inside out, and it transforms them. I mean, we see it all the time, and it's multi-generational. So we see it in the children and we see it in the adults. I mean, if you look at our mother, like she's 78 years old. She comes on, you know,
Love
every
it.
week with
Uh-huh.
our brother, who
Oh,
again
yeah.
is 54, and he's in a wheelchair and he's like bobbing his head and he cries sometimes. I mean, it evokes so much emotion in him. And the doctors, like they're just like, this is his healing. This is his
Yeah.
medicine. So, I mean, it's like the biggest case study, just looking even at our family and the way it's transformed our family and also this community, this global community that we're building and the feedback that we get just from watching people. It's really beautiful.
And what a great testimony too with your brother, just the extraordinary, just having that. It's so interesting because I'm sure that I had a stepson that had Down syndrome and autism, and just having that in the family was very powerful because there was so much built-in compassion and love that was developed because of the suffering of, my stepson, or I'm sure your brother, and like through your mother and through, as you sisters. And I just love seeing that because so often, um, maybe when he got the diagnosis, the first thought might have been, oh, this is awful. But the truth is, it's so powerful when we love ourselves through the trauma and suffering. And I'm sure you guys, like you mentioned, Jessica, the autoimmune stuff, and I've gone through Crohn's and cancer and all this. But as we take those things and shift them into the blessing and the joy that can come from, and not that I would wish suffering on anyone, it's not like that, but when it happens, right? And how do we, as family members, or even if it's our own self, embrace that and find the joy and meaning? And it really transforms. And then what you guys have done is take that and spread it to the world and teach other people how to do the same thing. And that's really the power of these things, right? They're not fun. We would never wish them on anyone. But when they happen, if we can transform suffering into the power of joy and meaning and purpose, it really, really does make a difference.
It truly does. And it always is an invitation to find that deeper level of self and connection, to ourselves and another. And it's like, yes, we would never wish it upon anyone, but we
Yeah.
don't want people to live in
Right,
complacency or
right.
not knowing themselves. So we really believe, and he's really taught us, like there's always an invitation to find a new part of yourself. And
Mhm.
the more we know ourselves, inevitably, the more we love ourselves.
Yeah, I
The
love
more
that.
resilient we are.
Yes, yes, true resilience. Oh, so the cookbook. I want to talk about that. Tell us more about, yes, cookbook and where people can find it and kind of what the bait, why people would want to get a copy of that and have it in their kitchen.
So we really feel that every kitchen should have the Eat, Drink, Shine cookbook, second edition.
So second edition, we did it once with a publishing company out of the UK and it was great, but we did it their way, but this one's our way.
Yeah,
Yes, I totally
because
get
it's
it.
recipes and new recipes, and it has a lot of techniques, like we said, around sprouting and fermenting foods, but also like how to sear chicken and fish and that kind of thing too. So it's really
Over
around
100
oh
recipes.
yeah, over
Amazing.
100 recipes, even sweet treats that are super like high, highly nutritious sweet
Yeah.
treats and that kind of thing. And it's also our story woven throughout it. And it's really just one of these books that I feel like so many people all the time will stop me in the street and say, oh my gosh, I love this recipe. I love that dressing. I love how you do this. Like, I never thought of that. It's simple because we get that people don't have as much time as they once did. So we're bringing food back, into the kitchen, onto the table. And so we do this by creating simple recipes that are super nutritious, super delicious. And you don't have to be like a chef, or, super high level. Like a lot of cookbooks are super
Mhm.
beautiful, but you're like, oh my God, I can never make that. This is
Right.
super beautiful and you can make it.
And,
Awesome.
and you can make it with the family. I mean, that's the thing is like a lot of these recipes have been tested by like my nieces, Jessica's kids,
Yeah.
and stuff like that too. Because we're all about, I mean, cooking together, having meals together. It's
Making it accessible.
making and fun.
Love it. And where can people find more about the cookbook, about you guys? Where can they purchase a copy?
So you can get it off our website which is shinelivingcommunity.com and we'll put it in the show notes for sure. And then you can also get the book on Amazon. And if you are getting it on Amazon, we just say make sure it's the second edition one because we feel like that's who we are now.
Yeah.
That's who we're becoming. And yeah, it's updated all the recipes and new ones too.
And all of our classes, our events, our digital studio is all on our website. So you can find it all there.
Shine Living Community, right?
Yeah.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, thank you guys for what you've done for the past 20 years for our community in Boulder and just for the joy and vibrancy you bring and resiliency. And I can't wait to start trying the recipes. I'm going to check it out.
Awesome. Well, thank you. And
Thank
thank
you
you
so
for
much.
everything you're doing and all the beautiful work. And we're so glad we finally got a chance to connect you because we keep hearing your name and I feel like we swim in
Me
similar.
too. I feel the same. I'm like, I know these guys. I feel like I know them, but it's time to
Yeah.
connect. So thanks
But
again
I've
for
got
coming
me
on.
when
Hey, everybody. Thanks again for listening to this episode of Resiliency Radio with our local heroes, Jill and Jessica of Shine Living Community. That was fun to hear about their story of creating farm to table cooking in restaurants and their cookbook and community. Hope you enjoyed that. It's a little different from some of our medical experts, but I still think it's important to talk about community and how we as women, entrepreneurs, and leaders can support one another in this process. So in the show notes, you'll find all the links to books and all the Shine Living Community, all of that.